Alright, now in our final video for the week, we're going to discuss one of the major alternatives to consent theory versions of political authority, and that comes to us from democratic authority. So, there are a number of states in our current world that rely on democracy. We're taught from a very young age that democracy is the best form of government. Generally, it's thought to be one of the, if not the best form of government. It's supposed to capture the will of the people, advance our interests, keep us free from tyranny, so on and so forth, right? So democracy is supposed to be great, and it clearly is beneficial in a number of ways. So we should hope then that democracy can actually give us a solid theory of political authority. And so many have tried to do this. There are all sorts of permutations and differences. There are dozens of different forms of the democratic theory, but we're going to look at the general outline of how these theories work and see if they provide a better alternative than consent theories. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that consent theory and democratic theory are two and only two of the dozens of different theories we could look at. So we're just looking at two of the major ones. It could be, though, that there's some other lesser known theory that works out for us. But just want to give you guys a rough feel for the problem, right? So we're looking at the two biggest theories. So let's get into the actual idea here. So democratic theories of authority, like I said, can take a number of different forms. So some of them focus more on the process. So they say that democracies create political authority or ground political authority because the process is fair. Right? And so the results of a fair process are morally, have a moral stamp of approval. Right? So as long as it's the result of a fair process, then we have a duty to obey it. Especially if this is the only fair process, which some democratic theorists say. They say no other process for making political decisions is fair, only democratic processes are fair, so we have to use a democratic process, and the fairness grounds authority. Other democratic theorists say, no, it's not so much the process that's important. Really, it's because democracy produces the best political outcomes. So, I mean, the process will still be important, but the process isn't valuable in and of itself, right? So process theorists say the process alone has value. Outcome theorists say no, the process is valuable because it brings about these desirable outcomes. And so what are the outcomes? Well, they think given that there's disagreement about how we should structure our life, democracy does a pretty good job of producing just or morally right outcomes. And so that's what grounds its authority. It's that it's our best way of tracking the truth about morality or justice. And so hopefully you can see those are two drastically different ways of grounding authority, but both are relying on the idea of democracy. Okay, so whether you're a process theorist or an outcome theorist, the main driving ideas are still going to be the same. The fundamental ideas for your theory are still the same. And so those ideas are three things. One, people in general, every individual, is worthy of equal respect by the government. Since government is just a creation of the people and government rules over people's lives, government should take every individual to be of equal worth. This seems really intuitively true, right? Even if you don't care about the government part, it just seems like people in general are just naturally due an equal level of respect. People obviously can do things to lose that sort of gift of equal respect, right? If they're doing morally bad things all the time, sure, maybe we don't have to respect them. But that's not the claim here. The claim is just as a natural default position, everybody's worthy of equal respect. They also make two additional claims. So the second of the three fundamental ideas is that pluralism exists. And what is that? Pluralism just means that there are a number of different views about how we should structure our state, how we should structure our political life, how we should structure society, different fundamental views about morality, justice, and society. And the claim isn't just that people hold different views, the claim is that people hold different views and are justified in holding all of these different views. And this is closely related to the third fundamental idea. Most democratic theorists claim there is such a thing as objective knowledge, right? There is such a thing as objective truth, but the problem comes because it's difficult to obtain that knowledge. And so democratic theorists are saying it's not so much that we can't get the knowledge, it's just it's difficult to know who has got the knowledge. So if Democrats, libertarians, conservatives, third partyists, socialists, whatever you are, right? Democratic theorists can say, look, one of them might have the true knowledge, right? So it could be that communism is the true objective fact of social morality. But the democratic theorist is going to say, look, none of us can know which of us has found the right view. We all have good reasons, we all have good arguments, and there's no sort of easy measuring stick, right? We can't just bust out a ruler, put it up to everybody's view, and see which one is the proper length, right? The right one. So, given that there are a number of views, because there's pluralism, and it's really difficult to know who's found the right view, it might be impossible, we have an issue, right? We have to give everybody equal respect. And so how do we do this? Well, democratic theorists often say it's by giving everybody an equal voice in the political process. So we have a duty to obey the law according to democratic theorists because the laws are the results of a democratic process, and the process is the only way we can show equal respect for all of our fellow citizens, given that we all disagree about how we should structure society. So there's a lot of really important information there. Hopefully it's all coming across to you. But the big thing is just, look, we all disagree, and there's no clear answer to these questions. So if we're going to treat everybody with equal respect, that means everybody should have an equal voice. And democracies are unique in allowing us to give everybody an equal voice. Or at least that's the claim, right? So you might worry that our current democracy fails to give minorities a proper voice, right? If it's a perpetual minority, we talked about this before, the tyranny of the majority, right? If it's perpetual minority, they might never get a true voice. So democratic theorists aren't going to normally say, look, the US is a perfect form of democracy and can ground authority. They're going to say, okay, well, democracy can ground authority. Here are the general outlines of how it can do that. And so now we may need to restructure our particular democracy to better match the ideal democracy. But that's roughly how it's going to go. Okay, so now hopefully you understand why this grounds authority, right? It's the only way to treat everybody with equal respect, so we have a duty to obey the outcomes of the democratic process. But as with every theory, there are some problems we have to worry about. So first we have to think, okay, well, democracies come in a lot of different forms. Right? So you could have a direct democracy in which each of us has one vote and we all go to a town hall once a week to vote on all the issues. Everybody gets a chance to speak. Everybody gets one vote. We could have a representative democracy, which is much like what the US has, right, where we don't actually directly vote on every issue. We vote on representatives who can then take part in the debate on every issue. Right, so we're not directly involved, but we do get our voice in there by selecting someone we think will represent our interests. And then finally, there's strong notions of deliberation, right? So it doesn't have to be a direct democracy. It doesn't have to be a representative government. But whatever form it does take, there has to be a lot of deliberation there. It's not enough to just vote and tally up the votes and see which one is the winner. We have to actually deliberate by giving our reasons, giving arguments, and trying to persuade people. We can't just walk in, not speak to each other and vote. We have to actually walk in, have a big debate, and then, if we don't agree, go to a vote. So the question here is, which of these best serves the notion of equal respect? Deliberative theorists say majority rule isn't enough to show everybody equal respect. Sure, everybody has technically equal power because everybody has one vote, but they're going to say that's not enough to respect everybody. Right? In order to show everybody equal respect, we have to actually listen to their reasons, listen to their arguments, and try and see where they're coming from. Majority rule people will just say, no, the deliberation's really not that important. People aren't going to agree anyway. All we need to do is just give everybody a single vote so they can have equal power. Right? So no clear solution to this problem, but it's something you have to overcome if you're a democratic theorist. You have to find out which of the many different democratic processes is best going to serve the notion of equal respect. Second, we go back to the different forms of democracy, right? There's process-based theories and outcome-based theories. And so there's a big debate over which one we should care more about, right? So should we care more that the process is fair, that everybody has equal power, that everybody has an equal opportunity to take part in government, so on and so forth, right? But then we can accept almost any outcome that's produced by this fair process, even if we disagree with the outcome or think the outcome is bad. So these people say, no, we should clearly care more about the process than we should about the outcome. But this is highly contentious. Some people say, no, who cares if the process is fair if it's only resulting in bad outcomes? Right? So say we have a fair process, but somehow it keeps resulting in racist policies. Outcome theorists are going to say that's why we shouldn't care about the fairness of the process in isolation, right? The fairness is still going to be important, but the more important thing is that the outcomes that are being produced by the process are just, fair, and morally right. So there's a second problem. Excuse me. Some people think this has been solved, right? Some people say, no, it's really the outcome-based theory, so on and so forth. I'm just sort of highlighting the debate here for you, but that's something you definitely have to answer if you're a democratic theorist. And then the final worry for democratic theories is something known as the bar tab example. And so we'll go over this quickly. Roughly the idea is, imagine you go to a bar with all of your friends. If you're not old enough to drink, imagine you just go out to eat with all of your friends at a restaurant, whatever it is. And then the check comes, and everybody says, okay, you have to pay for it. I assume you're going to say, no, that's crazy, right? Like, you guys all ordered food. I didn't offer to pay for this. You're just trying to force the bill upon me. I'm not going to do it. That's not fair. Well, then everybody says, okay, well, you want it to be fair? We'll put it to a vote, and we'll give everybody equal power, and we'll give everybody at the table one vote. Well, hopefully you can see what the outcome's going to be, right? All of them are going to vote for you again, right? So if they wanted you to pay in the first place, they'll all use their vote in that same way. So the outcome is the same. So now you have to pay, right? That's if we're supposed to value or respect or obey the outcomes of democratic procedures. Well, here's a clear example of a democratic procedure. Everybody got one vote, and even though you don't like the outcome, at least the process was fair. I assume, though, you don't agree, and that's the important part. I assume you're saying, no, they're just sort of wielding their power over me. Even though this was a democratic decision, it doesn't actually capture fairness. It doesn't show me equal respect. So if you buy this idea of the bar tab example, this could be a counterexample to democratic theory, because it looks like here's an instance where we have a fair process, we have a democratic, fair process, yet we still don't think we should respect or obey the outcome of the process. So there's some food for thought about democratic authority and its problems. This is sort of the main competitor to consent theory, and many people are still holding on to democratic theory today. So if you're interested in this problem, here's where a lot of the discussion is happening. And that's it for political authority this week. Thank you, everyone.